Hey there, it's Evan Nathaniel Grimm, and welcome to my forecast for September 2025. In this video, I'm going to overview the key trends and transits for the month ahead, including the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces, but I'm also going to apply all these transits to all 12 zodiac signs, so I will be doing the horoscopes as well. And in September, we are really detoxifying and purifying our physical bodies, emotional bodies, and spiritual bodies. This is being driven by the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces. And eclipses are occurring more frequently, I think, than people believe. I mean, eclipses can happen anytime. We can have anywhere from like 4 to 7 eclipses actually in a calendar year. And we have 2 eclipse seasons every calendar year. You know, what separates an eclipse from either a new or full moon, a standard one, is that, the sun and moon are in close enough proximity to the lunar nodes such that the sun's light is either partially or totally being blocked from reaching a part of the earth or from the moon. So a solar eclipse is synonymous with a new moon, lunar eclipse with a full moon. But in the case of a solar eclipse, the moon is obstructing some of the sun's light from reaching, a part of Earth. In the case of a lunar eclipse, the Earth is obstructing the sun's ability to bring all of its light to the moon. And of course, again, we have different types of lunar and solar eclipses, annular, partial, total, and so on. But astrologically, anytime we have an eclipse, there is something fateful, that's a little bit outside of our hands that happens. And I think that it is almost kind of written into our soul contract before we come into this world. It's written into the contract that, hey, we're going to experience this sort of fated karmic event that ultimately helps us advance to the next stage of our evolutionary path. Now, I believe that we have free will, and I do think we exercise, agency with 99% of the transits. So for most of the transits, we can at least anticipate the themes and try to activate the higher expression of that theme and that transit for our greater good. But with an eclipse, a lot of times it does feel like there's either divine intervention or something outside of our control that happens that we have to react to. And I kind of always think about it like in sports, if the puck hits the post of the net in the final game of the Stanley Cup or something, it's like the audience is just like, gasping at the puck as it's in suspended animation, and they don't know if it's going to bounce up and over the net or if it's going to go in. And it almost feels, right, like no matter what happens, there's a parallel universe close by where the opposite scenario played out. And it's just like that feeling of like, something outside of our hands like kind of takes over. And the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces this time around are obviously shaped by the signs that they're happening in. And Virgo Pisces deals a lot with our health. And I really think about it as too, like, managing the inputs and outputs, of sort of energy in our lives. So with Virgo, it could be more of like the physical nourishment and like, are we eating well? Or also, how are we using those calories, using that energy? Are we exercising? Do we have a healthy routine? But in Pisces, we're more so talking about the energetic exchange, the subtle energetics of relationships, but also about how we interface with the world. So these eclipses, I think, are going to reveal whether or not we are being, nourished or depleted, both physically and energetically, whether or not we're surrounding ourselves with people who are earnest, honest, high integrity, or if we're surrounding ourselves with people or situations that are toxic for us. So I really think about these eclipses as a period to kind of cleanse, declutter, get more organized when we're talking about Virgo, but also a time to really set boundaries with manipulative people, toxic people, energy vampires, and also to tap into the more inspired side of Pisces. But one more thing I want to say about the eclipses in general. A solar eclipse being a new moon, it is a chance at a new beginning of some kind, because it is still a new moon. But since it's an eclipse, the energetic flow is disrupted. So remember, the sun's light is being blocked in some respect. And so, with a solar eclipse, we can start fresh, but oftentimes it's in reaction to a disruption, a reset, an interjection energetically. And with a lunar eclipse, it's like a full moon amplified, right? We're purging, releasing even more than usual. And also, I think about lunar eclipses as revealing an even more repressed aspect of ourselves or our psyche or our unconscious. There's like underlying forces that bubble up to the surface on a lunar eclipse, because a full moon already is going to reveal sort of like the more hidden forces that we can only intuitively grasp in that moment. But a lunar eclipse is oftentimes going to bring about this revelation about some really deeply repressed or buried aspect of our shadow side. And so, I mean, we're gonna witness that, I think, during the lunar eclipse in Pisces, September 7th. We're going to witness where we have residual emotions still connected to a certain experience or a person. We're going to witness where, we have been deceived or where we've been lying to ourselves, especially because Saturn will be retrograde back in Pisces by then. And then the solar eclipse after that in Virgo is a chance to really lock in, I think, to a new way of life or daily ritual or daily habit that really raises our own standards. Like, this is a month where we are raising our standards. We're not willing to surround ourselves with people who, they're not like with people who don't hold themselves to those standards, or people who, again, outright lie to us or deceive us. And anyways, I'll talk about those eclipses further throughout the video. But we also have the Sun opposing Saturn and Neptune this month, which is showing that Saturn and Neptune are reaching the climax of their synodic cycle with the Sun. And the opposition is happening in fairly rapid succession, about 2 days apart. And when Saturn opposes the Sun, it is really like the peak moment in the Saturn retrograde where I think that we can kind of grasp what we need to take responsibility over, how we need to be more disciplined. And it's just calling attention like it has not throughout the synodic cycle. It's calling attention to those Saturnian aspects of ourselves or our lives. So you're going to realize by late September where maybe you haven't met expectations, where you could be more disciplined, where you could be, more responsible, and, where you're going to be held more accountable. And then when it opposes Neptune, we might yet again, after that lunar eclipse in Pisces, realize, that we have been deceived, or we need to be more truthful, or that we need to address our health, especially our energetic and mental and spiritual health. Or maybe it will be a moment of divine bliss, spirituality, or creativity. We also have a Mercury Cazimi around September 13th with the South Node, and that's the superior conjunction of Mercury, which is very positive, especially with Mercury in its domicile. So the Mercury Cazimi here is going to reveal to you maybe a certain skill that you'd like to refine. Maybe it will validate that you've already refined the skill. With the connection to the South Node, perhaps you will pick back up a skill that you had, left behind for a long time. Others might ascertain some, really important insight that helps them analyze a situation or solve a problem more effectively. I mean, you might just come up with an effective solution to a problem around that time or a process. Mars will square Jupiter and Pluto. First Jupiter, then Pluto. Although I do think at certain points in that, it will be squaring both Jupiter and Pluto at the same time when it's at the later degrees of Libra around September 19th. So Mars square Jupiter from Libra to Cancer, I think that's going to inflame us in some way. It's going to amplify Martian traits, whether that's courage or anger or vitriol or just competitiveness, aggression. But from Libra to Cancer, it's more about, I think, standing up for, justice and fairness among the people we care about, or even within our family. So maybe you will end up standing up for a family member, standing up for yourself in the family. And then when it squares Pluto, that's going to be a very intense transit because not only is Mars going to square Pluto, but it's also going to be in a yod with Uranus and Neptune. So that yod with Uranus and Neptune is, that's going to show that there are these very sudden fluctuations in our energy levels. I think with Mars and Uranus in conjunct, people are going to have these kind of manic swings in energy. They'll go from feeling hyper to feeling depleted, or they will have these, engage in these very deviant behaviors, and like in conjunct to Neptune, maybe deceptive behaviors. And then squaring Pluto, it's like an energy of domination. So I would say during this Virgo season for, the first 3 weeks of September, really hold yourself to a high standard, like detoxify from anyone who has a negative influence on you. Do not surround yourself with people who deplete you, people who arouse suspicion in you. Because if you're surrounding yourself with any bad actors, those people could really come out like with a vengeance or a full force in the final week of September, which is very problematic. So just don't draw the ire of people who are jealous of you, vengeful, or people who want to tear you down. Like Mars in Scorpio in its home sign is strong, but squaring Pluto, which already is the modern ruler of Scorpio, it just feels like somebody is doing whatever they can to just, again, take power away from you. So again, steer clear of people who, have bad intentions. But also Mars square Pluto can help people, fight for the underdog or engage in activism. So also this coming month, we have Venus square Uranus. And, during that time, Venus will be in Virgo, squaring Uranus and Gemini. So with Venus and Uranus in these mercurial signs, I think a lot of people will be overhauling their values around AI or technology, or how to use technology in either their workplace, their own lives, the educational sphere. And Venus, again, is going to be in a yod with Pluto and Neptune as well. And by the way, we're getting a lot of yods nowadays because there's a minor grand trine going on between Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. Now, Pluto and Neptune have been sextile for a long time, since about 2050. But now that Uranus is trine Pluto, it's also, by definition, sextile Neptune. So anytime a planet is at 0, 1, 2 Virgo, 0, 1, 2 Scorpio, there's a yod forming, in the near future. So, for example, Mars was in Virgo, June, whatever it was, like mid-June, 19th or something. And during that time, that's when the U.S. dropped the bunker-busting bombs in Iran. And that, Mars was in a yod. It was actually a double yod at that time because Jupiter was also in early Cancer. But, these yods are very fateful. The yods are it's a finger of God. And it is like a convergence of awkward energies and subtle tensions that forces you to make adjustments in fated ways. Anyways, but with that Venus square Uranus, some of you will suddenly become detached from a partner. You might not be interested in them anymore. You might break up, seek freedom, liberation, or you might get into a myopic argument with somebody. But I think a lot of you are changing your values about AI, about technology. And I'm not going to lie. There might be reports in the news of increasing automation, rendering certain jobs redundant. I could see changes in the markets, in the economy, in employment around that time. Also this month, we have Uranus retrograde, stationing retrograde on September 5th. Uranus retrograde is going to really bring even more power to Uranus. Because when a planet's retrograde, it's not necessarily weaker, especially when it stations, right? It's almost at the forefront of our consciousness. So Uranus retrograde in Gemini is a reflection on, I think, how we socialize with or connect with or absorb and gather information from AI. How many of our daily conversations now are with an AI chatbot? I mean, it's probably a pretty staggering percentage. I personally do not use AI in my day-to-day. But for the people I know who do, it seems to really predominate their, their social battery. I mean, a lot of their social battery is devoted to these AI like platforms. And I think we're just evaluating our relationship to AI and how it has changed our brains, how it has changed our social skills, how it maybe has atrophied, caused our memory or our social adeptness to kind of atrophy. Uranus retrograde in Gemini will also be a reflection on how the education system has been impacted by AI, how media has been impacted by AI. So perhaps during that time, there will continue to be major announcements about media conglomerates merging or dissolving, certain media companies dissolving, or, certain digital media websites just continuing to like purge traffic and losing advertisers. Perhaps AI will be helping to personalize, the education experience. But I think with Uranus retrograde, we're also going to be reflecting on the, Gemini ruled house of our chart. That's where we are starting to experience these sudden changes. But I really think Uranus retrograde in Gemini is almost like a warning signal from, from the gods that, maybe it's just going to be maybe not warning us about AI, but just kind of like giving us a chance to ask these deeper philosophical questions about, well, how does human behavior change amidst this, accelerated adoption of AI? How does our brain capacity change? And how does our sense of community, our sense of self change? I mean, these are all big questions that maybe will just be answered privately, internally, but they're questions worth asking during the retrograde. And it's also, I think, a question of like, what skills are worth attaining organically now? As AI increasingly replicates these very high functioning processes in the human brain, like, what is the point of going through like a linear educational process? Which I'm not trying to argue that it's not worth going through, the educational system, but Uranus retrograde in Gemini is going to, beg these types of questions. Like if AI can produce in 5 years, like an absolutely profound film, like what does that mean for, the directing experience and the filmmaking experience? I mean, I'm not here to answer the question for you, but I think Uranus retrograde will beg these deeper philosophical questions. Mars is going to form a yod, like I said, with Neptune and Uranus. I already talked about that. And then Mercury will square Uranus first at the beginning of the month, by the way, from Virgo to Gemini. So Mercury square Uranus is going to, I think, help people deploy AI in a more efficient way to streamline a process, to solve a problem. People might also, AI companies might unveil new capabilities that shock everybody at the very beginning of September, right around Labor Day. And we also have Venus in Leo for a lot of the month. And Venus in Leo is going to really bring in some passion, romantic flair to our relationships. And, people might be seeking greater validation. And when Venus sextiles Mars in the middle part of the month, I think that's going to bring a lot of creativity to our relationships and to, it's going to bring creativity into focus for us. So now I want to go through the key ingresses, which are the dates when planets change signs. So this month, Mercury enters Virgo September 2nd. It's home sign, so at that time, you're going to feel more analytical, process-driven, focused, and especially focused on the details and your atomic habits that compound over time. The sun enters Libra September 22nd. That is the fall equinox. That's when we start to strive for balance, symmetry, justice, fairness. Mercury enters Libra September 18th. That's when we speak in a more balanced way. Mars enters Scorpio September 22nd. That's when we start to feel more intensely driven to act or act in a certain way. We feel motivated to, I think, to either expose corruption, especially the square to Pluto. We might feel motivated to, gain the upper hand over somebody who wronged us. Mars and Scorpio can be very vengeful, it can be very resentful, but it can also be very strong at kind of building up a reserve of energy that just allows you to just relentlessly pursue something in times of duress and to not give up. Saturn does retrograde back into Pisces September 1st. So the whole month of September, the Pisces house of our chart is being scrutinized. And Saturn in Pisces is going to really ask us whether or not we have actually, exposed the deception in our lives, whether it's our own deception or a deception from others. And also, it's going to ask us whether or not we are, holding the right ideals or idealizing the wrong things. Or maybe it will expose toxic habits that we have that are having a deleterious impact on our mental health, spiritual health. And then Venus does enter Virgo, by the way, September 19th, at which point I think we will hold ourselves to higher standards in relationships. And it is really going to, for the artists, help them sharpen their craft as artists. And it's going to call attention to work and the workplace. You might develop relationships with new coworkers around September 19th or starting then. And also with Venus and Virgo, though, people might become pickier and, more scrupulous, and they might be a little bit finicky about how people behave around them. And if you have a partner, they might start complaining about more things that you're doing wrong. So noteworthy transits. I want to just quickly, this is going to overlap with what I just said, but I just want to go through kind of chronologically what's happening in September. So September 2nd, we have Mercury square Uranus. That is going to bring about sudden breakthroughs intellectually and sudden breakthroughs about AI, education, media. And you might just be analyzing reams of data at that time. You might be solving a problem using outside-the-box thinking. Mars will square Jupiter September 4th approximately. During that time and the days following, you'll feel more inflamed, maybe more aggressive, more frustrated, especially towards family members. But it's also a great opportunity to step up to the plate and demand, a more fair environment or greater sort of equality, or not equality, but just kind of like fairness in your family or among the people you consider to be family. Mercury conjoins the sun September 13th. At that time, Mercury's in its home sign. It's direct and it's purified by the sun's light. So at that time, you could really wake up to a skill set that you'd like to refine. You could validate your skill sets. You could perform a very sharp analysis of something. You could get more organized. You could realize the type of routine that you want. You could also learn about your health. Not good or bad, but you could just, sort of download an important piece of information about your health. Or your pets. Virgo is pets. Venus will sextile Mars September 15th. During that time, again, creativity can really define your relationships, meaning you could collaborate with people creatively, or you're just feeling more creative and expressive. Mercury opposes Saturn September 17th. During that time, you will either get even more focused on a task, or you will be able to kind of tolerate tasks that would usually be more dry or boring, or you might cut off contact with somebody, to be honest. Mercury will oppose Neptune and create a kite on September 18th. That's, on the one hand, showing potential deception and lies between you and your peers, but it is forming a kite, grand air trine on, with that grand air trine. So it's also a very social time. So I think you're socializing with a lot of people September 18th, but maybe one of the people in that group is lying to you, or you're creating or healing with a group of people. The Sun opposes Saturn September 20th, which is bringing Saturn to the forefront of our consciousness, helping us reflect on the point of this Saturn retrograde in Pisces, which I think is all about, again, being honest with ourselves about what relationships are toxic, what habits are toxic, what lies are we telling ourselves, what lies are being told to us. Is our health actually in order? Are we addressing our health or not? Are we ambitiously building the scaffold or finishing up a creative project? Like Saturn in Pisces can help you release a very ambitious creative project to the public. You know, if you've been working on like an album or a film, I mean, right now I'm a musician, lifetime musician. I am lifelong musician, I guess is probably the better word. That sounded like I'm a musician on the channel Lifetime or something. I have 3 songs that I'm working on right now, and I feel the push, especially as a Scorpio sun and moon with my solar horoscope and lunar horoscope, putting Saturn in my 5th house. I feel the push to really finish those projects and these songs before Saturn leaves Pisces next year. So anyways, I think that Saturn in Pisces doesn't just have to be about toxicity and deception. It can also be about your spirituality too, your creativity, and again, building the scaffolding and the structure to a creative process or project, or, realizing where you've bought into like delusory spiritual concepts or spiritual like communities, and living according to an honest set of spiritual principles. I think you can do that. And with the sun, then the sun will also oppose Neptune 2 days later, while it's also forming a kite with the same, forming a grand air trine as well. While Mars squares Pluto, while Mars is in a yod with Uranus and Neptune. So the fall equinox in the beginning of Libra season, September 22nd, it just feels so consequential, not just personally, but for society. And with Mars squaring Pluto, I do feel like there's either corruption being exposed, or perhaps a world leader is under some amount of strain or stress at this time, or it does feel like kind of a dangerous aspect. Almost feels a little perverse too, and socially deviant. It's very strange. It does feel very social. It feels like there's a creative or spiritual energy coursing through the community or the group or the friend network or the friendships. But then with Mars square Pluto, it's almost like someone in that community is trying to undermine somebody else. So expect quite a bit of drama in late September, especially drama that's kind of stoked by jealousy, vengeance, or just underhanded tactics. And then we have Venus square Uranus, by the way, September 20th. So around the fall equinox, like that's the hot spot for the year or for the month, besides the eclipses. And Venus square Uranus around September 20th can lead to breakups, just sudden, unexpected events in relationships, changes in values, especially changes in values around work, daily routines, health, changes in values surrounding AI, technology, and changes in the labor force, I think. I think a lot of companies around the fall equinox are going to decide that AI, they're just going to let AI displace a lot of the jobs. But with Mars square Pluto, the workforce is going to be, or like whichever cohort is affected, will be very upset by that. So now I want to talk about the executive trends, as I call them. So in September, especially with the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces, I really do believe we are detoxifying and purifying the energetic, emotional, physical body. and we're essentially auditing and evaluating the inputs and outputs. What's going into our bodies energetically and like, calorie wise, and what energy are we projecting into the world? How are we converting the energy that people are giving us? So, like, if you're around charlatans and energy vampires, or people who just compliment you and give you an easy pass for everything, or if you're around people who hate you secretly and they manipulate you as well, that energy has to be converted. Like, your body's either going to hold on to that, or it's going to kind of like cascade into other situations where, they're just problematic for you down the line. With food, how are you converting that energy? Metabolically, are you, eating healthy and taking a walk outside after you eat, or are you eating and then sitting? So with Virgo being more of the physical and Pisces being the energetic, we are really taking a holistic view of our system and our bodies, plural, right? We're not just the physical body. Obviously, we have the subtle bodies, and we have, the energetic body, the chakras, which are very, much also manifesting on the physical plane. But we have these energy centers. We have the, it's somatic, right? We have these aspects of ourselves that, where we have these residual energies, I should say, within these spheres and within our aura. It's like if somebody affected us profoundly 10 years ago, a part of that still lives within us potentially. So I would argue the lunar eclipse in Pisces, September 7th, is a great, it's a great time to really purge and let go of residual energies. It's a great opportunity to call out any BS in our lives, to call out deception, dishonesty. It's a time to get inspired by what we are drawn to creatively or spiritually. It's a time to heal. It's a time to show compassion for others. It's a time to benefit from others' compassion. Because Virgo and Pisces, both of these signs are about service too. In Virgo, how we serve people through a hard skill set. In Pisces, how we serve a higher power, or how we serve a cause, or how we serve the collective, driven by a sense of empathy. So you're asking yourself, am I being nourished or depleted? Am I surrounded by deception or honesty? And with the solar eclipse in Virgo, September 21, which, by the way, is wrapped up in all these aspects I talked about, we are looking at the smallest atomic habits that we have. Those tiny, everyday things that dominate like 80% of our lives, right? 80% of what we do approximately is repetitive. And those things compound. So you're rearranging your habits this month in a way that supports relationships that have greater integrity. You're promoting greater health, and so on. And so it's like we're raising our standards in all senses. We are demanding better of ourselves, demanding better of others, but also not being like a keyboard warrior and not just like criticizing others out of convenience or out of anonymity, right? Like, this is a time where, we actually are, we're reaping what we sow, right? It's like, we're learning that, like, we can't criticize someone for something that we do ourselves. Like, we're this is not the time to be a hypocrite, right? Or this is not the time to, like, exaggerate something, or this is not the time to, again, exaggerate for the sake of manipulation, or this is not the time to, be all like, woe is me, just to get attention from people, right? This is a time to act with integrity. And, our thoughts create our reality. This is the type of eclipse season where if we basically align our thoughts with our words and our actions, and our thoughts are being cleansed and purified right now, then like we're going to just elevate. We're going to, kind of reach the next level by projecting this energy of, again, integrity and earnestness and, again, honesty, and even like projecting this energy of like consistency, dependability, follow through. Like by projecting that this month, you're going to attract people who are like that, people who you can actually depend on. So by the end of September, you're either going to be surrounded with people who are spineless, again, people who tell you one thing in front of you and then something else behind your back, or whatever, or you're going to be surrounded by people who you can actually rely on and depend on. And also in September, like do something nice for somebody. Perform an act of kindness, act of service. That's going to create a lot of good karma for you. And through that, you can really develop deeper bonds with the people around you. And I do think with, the energy in Virgo this month, there's a lot of energy in Virgo. Mercury, Venus, the sun, the moon, the south node, all pass through Virgo this month. We are perfecting our skill sets, especially distinctive skill sets. So like I said earlier, or maybe I said this earlier, I don't even remember, but like I'm a musician, and, recently I brought out my violin, my mandolin, my bass, my guitar. I'm tracking music again. And like, to me, that's kind of anticipating this Virgo energy. It's like, okay, like if I think I'm a virtuoso of string instruments, then like prove it, like instead of just talking about it, it's like I'm actually on the clock, like doing takes and tracking, recording, and having to do it the right way. Like Virgo is a specialist. Virgo is all about your craft. We're also setting better boundaries with what I call energy vampires, right? We are disconnecting from and detaching from, or calling out people who, again, do things to deceive us, or people who use us, people who latch onto us for emotional support without offering anything in return. And during Libra season, it is about reciprocity. So is somebody all take and no give? Like, is somebody just saying like, oh, I'm calling you to complain about my life. My life is always so miserable, and your friend is just constantly complaining to you, but never asking you how you are. In that case, I would set a firm boundary with them and say, hey, like, I'm not going to tell you to ask about me. Like, if you don't ask about me, that's just ingrained in you. That is just not an energy I want to be aligned with. Because part of the lesson of this season and this month is that, like, it's like we allow those people into our lives. Like, we can't just like wish that away. We have to actually, like, the onus is on us to actually call out that behavior. And again, detach from that. Because if we're just allowing that person to keep coming into our lives, complaining about how bad everything is for them without asking about us in return, it's like we're inviting their energy into our aura. That has consequences. Like Pisces reminds us that there is a subtle energetic dynamic between us and the world around us at all times. So, like, again, bring yourself into environments where people are truthful, where there is a sense of reciprocity and service and attentiveness and conscientiousness. Also, this is a time period where you really want to be taking care of your pets. And like I said earlier, adopting a service-oriented mindset. In terms of predictions, I think there will continue to be AI advancements. AI will continue to proliferate in the educational sphere especially. There could be some restructuring of certain health agencies. Healthcare policies could change. Unfortunately, around the lunar eclipse in Pisces, there could be some storms, especially likely historic hurricanes. I think that the major storm is still happening next year, not this year. Because the Saturn-Neptune conjunction probably will bring about like a historic, almost like biblical storm. But I think this fall in September, there might be some outsized hurricanes, but or hurricanes that have an outsized impact. But if that were to happen, it probably would happen around the Pisces full moon. Digital media sites are continuing to get pummeled by AI. AI summaries are just depleting digital media websites and traffic. That is just completely disrupting the advertising industry, the internet economy. I think that there's kind of a provocative take that I have here, which maybe isn't that provocative anymore, but I think that things are getting a little out of control with AI as it concerns social media and sort of social areas of the internet. I think we are in a place already where social media could be dying and the internet as we knew it could be sort of dying a very quick death. I say that because it's almost like, and you already know this, but like when you engage with social media content, probably even like on this channel, you look at the comments. A lot of them feel eerily automated. A lot of comments on social media are either generated by AI, someone consulted AI to comment, or even the social media creator generated their entire script using AI. I mean, how many TikTok videos are either an AI, like an actual AI generated video and character, an avatar, and how many are just human beings, which I don't do this, by the way, but like how many are human beings just reciting a script that AI wrote? I mean, just on principle, I choose to make my videos without AI. I don't consult AI to help me explain a transit. I don't consult AI to help me come up with a hook. But I guarantee you, videos you've seen on TikTok with like 2 million views, even astrology videos, they have 2 million views, not because the creator is so clever, but because they consulted AI and asked AI, come up with the hookiest intro sentence to make people think that the eclipse is going to change their life forever. I'd be curious, what is AI going to say about that? It does the work for you. And because of that, it's like social media is losing its human touch, which is why we flocked to social media in the first place. Because we wanted a more organic environment to kind of witness what the collective is experiencing, what everyday people are, having to say. But that authenticity is being sapped away, I think, by AI. And I'm not here to like denigrate AI and try to say that it's like the devil's work. I'm not that stupid. Like, I recognize the benefits of it. I recognize how it can be deployed to streamline certain back-end processes and do research and all this stuff. But I think at the same time, there's a huge cost, right? The opportunity cost is that we lose the opportunity to have a human connection. And I think that social media, whether it's through automated comments, automated content, automated marketing, language, and collateral, we're going to eventually have to turn to something else, different environment. I don't know if it's in person. I don't know if it's just like a new type of engagement that we can't even think of right now. But I think social media is dying. I don't think it's a very fun place anymore. I don't think it's that fulfilling. I mean, I am very proud of, the impact I've had through my social media channels. But I don't know if I derive the same level of satisfaction from it that I used to. And I don't think it's just because I've been doing it for so long. I think it's because I'm like swimming in this sea of, again, automated content. And it's like, it feels increasingly faceless and detached. And I'm like being affected by that. Everyone's being affected by that. It's like harder and harder to I think that people are becoming numb to content in general. Like people don't even really maybe appreciate the message that's being conveyed because it's like the time to market, so to speak, with a piece of content is basically zero. It's like you just, like, again, a savvy creator could just prompt AI, all right, come up with a 90-second script about Uranus and Gemini that's going to catch people's attention. I like to highlight these 3 facts about it, and I'd like to elicit these 2 emotions. Fear and whatever. It's like, that makes my job a lot less unique because I'm competing now with those bots. I'm also competing with human creators that are secretly just delivering AI scripts. And they're doing it really well, including on this channel on YouTube. Not on my channel, but like I know that. And at this point, I want to get off this train momentarily because I understand that this may border on like judgment or accusation or something. But I've noticed that YouTube astrologers, which I didn't come up necessarily as a YouTube astrologer, so I don't know if I identify as a YouTube astrologer or with YouTube astrologers, but I have noticed that YouTube astrology content is becoming increasingly polished to a point where I think it's pretty obvious that like the most polished videos and the ones that probably get the most traction are entirely, written beforehand. And it's read from a script. It's like, it's edited very well. And look, when I do videos on TikTok and Instagram with my phone, those are 90-second videos that I obviously write ahead of time as well. But I just like, as I'm watching those long form videos that seem pretty scripted to me, I'm like, I mean, kudos to them, right? Because that takes a level of like insane maniacal fixation that I don't even know if I have. But I'm like wondering, like, okay, at some point, are some of those videos scripted by them or by AI? I don't know. And I'm not even calling out a specific astrologer, by the way, because I've just seen like many astrology videos on YouTube that are so well done that I'm like, it's not just voiceover. It's like this. They're talking to the camera, but I'm like, there is nothing in here that they had any doubt about saying. And that's a hallmark trait of a scripted video, right? It's like the gears aren't spinning up here. It's like a recitation. And while I'm not casting judgment on that, I just wonder if like eventually we're going to live in this world where you're seeing polished videos like that are indistinguishable from like an AI generated one. And it just feels like perhaps creators are polishing their videos in this environment on this channel that in a way that's almost reacting and trying to compete with AI generated videos that are so crisp and so on point. So it does feel like AI is already kind of like competing with us in this marketplace, and that's causing us to imitate the AI in a weird way. So that's just like one of my concerns broadly is just the lack of the human touch on the most popular social media accounts. Will that turn people off from engaging with a lot of social media? Maybe. Because I do think the most popular social media accounts in the future are going to be the ones that are the most indistinguishable from AI. And I'm not AI because I just stuttered that word. Okay, so anyways, I was making a couple loosely connected points there. I don't know if all of that made sense. It was a little meandering, to be honest, but I think the net is that we're witnessing the increased influence of AI on both creators and the people who engage with creators' content. And I just wonder what that will do for demand. How will that impact demand for social media creators, social media content down the line? Especially as the time to market is like, and the latency between the idea generation and the publication is zero. Eventually, it's just like, it's basically reached a point where you have a thought and now it's online. You have a thought, now it's online. And I think there's just too much content, too much information. So I think we're just going to be searching for new ways to connect or create content that sticks. Anyways, let's talk about the lunar eclipse in Pisces quickly. So the lunar total eclipse in Pisces is on September 7th at 15 Pisces. So that means if you have any major placements around 15 degrees of Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, then you will be, profoundly affected by the eclipse. But for everybody, the eclipse is a chance to purge unwanted energy, residual emotions and energies, to realize, I guess I've already talked about this, but realize areas of deception in your life, realize maybe where you've placed false hope in something, or areas where, or maybe you'll realize that you've idealized a certain person or something. One of the chart rulers, Jupiter, is square Mars. So tensions are kind of running high at that time, but it's also trining the full moon. So with Jupiter trine the full moon, there's a dose of hopefulness and optimism. Other chart ruler, Neptune, is sextile Uranus and Pluto. And Neptune sextile Uranus and Pluto shows that perhaps you are also, partaking in some kind of creative or spiritual energy within a community. And Saturn has retrograded back to 29 Pisces. So with Saturn loosely, very loosely, but in co-presence with this full moon, you are really seeing things realistically, I think. Again, you're realizing whether or not you're in a toxic, unhealthy relationship. Like, what is your attachment style with this person? Are you lying to yourself just to make this relationship work? Are you the one complaining to somebody all the time and never asking how they are? Are you unhealthy? Are you, again, purifying the energetic body by surrounding yourself with the right people? Are you purifying the physical body by eating well? The moon is 3 degrees from the north node, so the revelations you have around this time, I think, do serve your evolution. Mars is beginning to oppose Chiron, so some of you are maybe having to navigate areas of insecurity related to your toughness, your strength, and you're having to overcome that. Jupiter is also starting to square Chiron, though. So maybe you're healing through your family, or you are having a new perspective on wounds that have come up in your family. And there really is a Mars-Jupiter-Chiron T-square, I guess. So I just think that a lot of you are standing up for either yourself or someone in your family in a way that's healing for you. Next, we have the solar partial eclipse in Virgo, September 21st. This partial eclipse is at 29 Virgo. It's actually the second of 2 successive new moons in Virgo. And the first one is at 0, which is the most unfiltered version of the sign. And also a portal, symbolically, right? The 0 is like a gateway. So with that 0 degree new moon, August 22nd, 23rd, we really, I think, reinvented our routines because it was square Uranus, by the way. And now, with this partial eclipse at 29 Virgo, it's the anaretic degree, which can show that perhaps this is a final chance for us to optimize our health in a certain area. Perhaps this is a final chance to really lock into that skill set. Perhaps this is a final chance to be more kind and service-oriented towards somebody, to salvage the friendship or the relationship. Maybe this is just like a wake-up call with health. And the chart ruler Mercury is in Libra by that time, in that grand air trine with Uranus and Pluto, but also opposing Neptune, which is creating a kite configuration. So with Mercury opposing Neptune, maybe you will get news about, I don't know, someone was lying to you or deceiving you. Maybe you will hook into you'll get some kind of spiritual or mystifying download from a spirit guide or a guardian angel. With the grand trine, it is actually a very social time again. So I think September bodes well for both working efficiently, methodically, and for socializing, especially with groups of people who help you heal you in some way. Mars is actually going to be semi-sextile, the new moon. Because Mars is going to be 0, pretty much. Well, no, 29. Yeah, it's going to be at 29 Libra at that time. Let me actually pull this up on my computer. Yeah, I mean, Mars is semi-sextile, the new moon. So, semi-sextile is interesting. It's basically two planets kind of pinging each other, zapping each other, and saying, we're going to work together in a productive way eventually, but we're not really sure yet how. So this can be invigorating, but not in an obvious way. But, that new moon is a maturity point for you. For all of us, it's a time to really, again, tap into a cleaner, more decluttered and organized way of living. It's a time to hold ourselves to higher standards and to surround ourselves with people who demand the best in us and to really get away from anybody who has ill or impure intentions towards us. I mean, seriously, I think everybody watching this video right now has somebody that they've allowed into their life who is either using them or, taking advantage of your kindness potentially. And I'm just going to be honest, you have to ask yourself that question too. Are you taking advantage of somebody's kindness? So, without further ado, oh no, I haven't addressed everything. Venus is now in Virgo at that time, square Uranus and Gemini. So, I think that some of you are going to free yourself from a relationship or a connection, or you will experience a whole new value system. You'll overhaul your values as it concerns health or AI or work or technology. And Mars still opposes Chiron. So yet again, really trying to strengthen yourself, but to prove your strength, not in a toxic or unhealthy way. You're not trying to compensate for anything. You're finding your true strength, really standing in your true toughness without having to prove your toughness to anybody. So let's go through the horoscopes now. So we'll go into the month ahead by looking at the eclipses. And by the way, the solar eclipse in Virgo is it is a reset. It could be a reset in terms of health, what skills you're refining. Could be a reset in terms of how you take care of your pets. It could be a reset in how you show up for others. But I really think for most of you, it's a reset in your daily routines. So I'm going to work my way through the zodiac, starting with Aries. And by the way, Venus in Leo doesn't really form any hard aspects. I mean, at the end of August, it does oppose Pluto. But by September, that opposition has already passed. So, it's a Venus in Leo. It's a little bit quieter than some Venus and Leo transits, but it is getting the sextile, or is applying the sextile to Mars. All right, so let's start off with Aries, right? Aries, you are on September 7th experiencing the lunar eclipse in Pisces in your 12th house. Lunar eclipse in the 12th shows that you are primarily being asked to relax, rest, purge, close out cycles, to get back in touch with your spiritual side, your spiritual practices, practice mindfulness. Saturn's back in your 12th. So if you have any really toxic habits or nighttime routines, those will be brought to the forefront now. And you'll have to, be more, just live a healthier lifestyle that promotes greater mindfulness and spiritual health. You are also being called out. If you've been lying to people, you'll get called out for that. And if someone is deceiving you, you'll have no problem, I think, purging that connection. Oh, and I didn't even mention this in the video today, but the lunar eclipse in Pisces is a completion of something that started around February 27th for everybody. That's when we had the new moon in Pisces. And also, though, March 13th of this year and September 17th of last year, we had lunar eclipses in Pisces or Virgo. So think back to those times as well for any revelations you experienced then. But yeah, for Aries, this is very much focused on health because you have the Sun and Mercury in the 6th, and work, analytical stuff. You have Mars in the 7th still. So you're demanding a little bit more independence in relationships, negotiating fiercely for terms that actually work for you. Mars is squaring Jupiter, so you might be fighting with someone in your family, albeit in a way that commands greater respect for you. Uranus is retrograde in your third at this point, so a lot of you are reflecting on sort of the things I talked about at the beginning, how you can deploy AI in a more effective way, how you can just even like think about your health in a different way. But I think a lot of you are getting more work done in an efficient way. You're working smarter, not harder. Some of you are rethinking maybe a better way to make content. With Venus in the fifth, there could be a romantic spark in a friendship, or sorry, in a relationship. I don't know why I said friendship, but maybe you're dating a friend now. I don't know. And then the solar eclipse in Virgo. Let's talk about that for you. And then the solar eclipse in Virgo, and apologies for the delay here because I have to, adjust my software. The solar eclipse in Virgo, September 21st, is in your 6th house. So after you purge and you relax and rest and recuperate and kind of cocoon, I think you're cocooning on the lunar eclipse. The solar eclipse, September 21st, you're really locking into a routine that works for you. You're getting back on track. You're focusing your efforts towards a new work project. Mercury's in the 7th. So you are communicating very, you're communicating frequently with like a partner or a mentor or advisor. But with the opposition of Neptune at that time, avoid lies and deceit in those situations. But certainly you're social because there's a grand air trine in your social houses. Venus will be in the 6th by that time, square Uranus. So you also are the sign that is overhauling your values around work and health, healthy living. Maybe you are being staffed on a project with totally different coworkers now. And yeah, I think the meta point for Aries is that with Saturn going back into your 12th, you're realizing that maybe you still have to fully complete the purge of an old career cycle or of an old, of an ambition that you no longer have. You're letting go of an old goal that no longer serves you before. You're kind of cocooning for the next few months before Saturn goes back into Aries full time in February 2026. So take this time to really reflect on your health, mental health, spiritual health, and whether or not you're actually driven by the goals that you set for yourself. So next we have Taurus. So Taurus, we're going to start off with a lunar eclipse in Pisces, and this one is on September 7th. And this lunar eclipse is in your 11th house. So Taurus, around the eclipse, September 7th, you could have a celebration with a group or community or some of your friends. You could invite some friends over for an eclipse party. You could go to a concert, maybe a networking event. Maybe you'll realize that a friend just not holding up their end of the bargain, or they're lying to you about something, or they've been spreading rumors about you. I think a lot of Tauruses actually will purge a friendship at this time. Or you'll have a revelation about the type of community you'd like to participate in. If you're a social media creator, then perhaps you will accomplish something great on social media. Or you'll realize that you haven't maybe gained the traction that you wanted to on social media yet. But I think a lot of you could hit a really cool milestone on social media at this time and have a big impact on people in a community setting. Mars squares Jupiter from the 6th to the 3rd. With Mars in the 6th, you are energized to strengthen the body, but also don't overstrain yourself, or don't strain yourself. Don't lift more than you can handle. Some of you are experiencing a little stress with coworkers or pets at this time, or even with health. But with the Sun and Mercury in the 5th at this time, you are being called to be more creative. And in rare cases, some Tauruses are welcoming a child into the world. And if you are in the next few weeks, that child could have a past life connection to you, given the proximity to the South Node. Um, Uranus is recently retrograde in the second house. So you are reevaluating how you spend money, the reinvention of your values, the reinvention of your budgeting. You're reevaluating just how much your values have already changed in the last, well, really 7 or 8 years. Because not only was Uranus recently in your sign, but now Uranus is in your second house, which is a Taurus house. So you really have 15 years in a lot of ways of values overhauling, or overhauling values, I should say. Venus is in Leo in the 4th, so relations with family could be balancing out a little bit, which is nice. And then, with Saturn in the 11th, you're holding your friends more accountable, but also you're holding yourself more accountable as a friend or as a social media creator or as a community participant. And remember, this month, Virgo is the area where we're raising our standards. Pisces is the area where we're calling out bullshit. So Taurus, the next lunar cycle starts September 21 in your 5th house, right? So for that, again, you're either having a child who has a past life connection to you, or you are taking a new approach to how you parent and how you raise your kids. Perhaps you are really just starting a new creative project at this time that you feel strongly about, that utilizes your skill sets. I think you're waking up a set of skills that you can apply to your creative, works and your creative efforts. And for others, it's also the beginning of a romantic connection or relationship that maybe comes with higher standards. And Venus is in the 5th. So you're feeling, I think, quite expressive at this time. And maybe there is a more romantic tone in your relationship. And Venus is squaring Uranus from the 2nd to the 5th. So your values pertaining to children or creativity or romance or the inner child are changing dramatically. And then Mercury's in the 6th. So you are really focused on your health too. So Taurus, this month you are focused on your health, analyzing things very deeply as well. With Mars square Jupiter from the 6th to the 3rd. Some of you might experience some stress with a sibling in terms of how you share a routine together, but I still think you're being supported by your siblings right now. And keep in mind that a few days after this new moon, a day after, Mars goes into your 7th. At that time, you might be a little bit more stressed by your significant relationship, although also energized to, I guess you're just putting energy into it, more energy into it. So now let's go to Gemini. Gemini, we have this lunar eclipse in Pisces in your 10th house. So for you, naturally, this is going to be highly influential. A lunar eclipse in the 10th is a really big opportunity for you to let go of a career that's not resonating with you, to maybe call out deceptive tactics that a parent may be using. This is also an opportunity to think about your role as a parent or an authority figure differently. It could be a time where you're transitioning to a new set of responsibilities. With Uranus retrograde in your 1st, you are reflecting on the change that you truly want, the reinvention process that you truly want to go through. You're reflecting on the liberation you've experienced in recent months. You're kind of just taking on the persona of a rebel. You don't really care that much about your reputation. So with the full moon in the 10th, you're kind of if my career is not fulfilling, if it's stagnant, if it's boring me, then I'm just done. I'm going to do things a different way. So Gemini, this is an opportunity to just kind of flow differently and watch the positive results come through in your career after that. With the Sun and Mercury in your 4th, you are also focused on your home and family. Mars squares Jupiter with Mars in the 5th. You might be experiencing greater passion in a romantic relationship. Squaring Jupiter in the 2nd, you could feel more indulgent or hedonistic especially on a date. And I don't mean that in like a creepy negative way. I'm just saying like you might take a date to like a really nice restaurant and just, eat great food and have a very sensory experience or something. Or you're energized by your creativity. With Venus in the third, relations with siblings could be improving, or you're doing some creative writing as well. But yeah, the full moon in the 10th for Geminis. This is a major climax in your career, especially with Saturn in the 10th now. It's revealing whether or not your career is sustainable. It's revealing whether or not your career has longevity to it. Yeah, I mean, it's revealing whether or not you actually want to become a parent. It's revealing the true nature of one of your parents, potentially. But I think that here is just like the stark reality of your career is emerging. And you'll recalibrate, I think, accordingly. And not in a bad way, like I said. I mean, this could just be, well, again, for some Geminis, this is a major milestone in your career where you do something very public, very inspiring to others. So now we're going to advance to the sign of, I almost advanced to the next sign. What I meant to say is we're going to talk about the new moon for Gemini. So the solar eclipse in Virgo, this is happening in Gemini's fourth house. And keep in mind for all the signs, we've had already a Virgo new moon at 0 Virgo in August. So this is kind of like the other pillar, between, the 0 and 29 points. So we're really like experiencing the full spectrum of Virgo. And experiencing it at its most unfiltered with the 0 point and its most mature at the 29th degree. So the solar eclipse is a chance for Geminis to establish a whole new vibe in their home, with their property or their family. Maybe on the previous Virgo new moon, you tidied up, you cleansed your space, you organized your home to really handle the busyness of your life with Mercury in your third at that time. But now with this eclipse in your fourth, it could be that there's a formative, influential event happening that completely changes the trajectory for you in terms of like where you're living, who you're living with. So maybe you get a new roommate, maybe a roommate moves out. Maybe you maybe you become a parent here. Maybe you start to nurture somebody in a different way, take care of a family member, especially with the opposition of Saturn on the new moon, right? It's like really showing you that you have to take either a parenting responsibility seriously, you have to take care of a parent or a grandparent even who's ailing. Maybe you have a new long-term vision about where you'd like to live. And Venus is in the fourth as well. So really you are focused on creating an enjoyable home environment, I think. Squaring Uranus, you could have a social event at your home, or your values surrounding family will change. Or a family member you didn't talk to for a long time will show up out of nowhere. And, remember that Mercury is opposing Neptune. With Neptune in the 11th, really have to watch out for deceptive friendships at this time. And with Jupiter still in the second house, I like that transit. Even though the second house is a weaker house, it's not obviously connected to the ascendant in any way, other than by semi-sextile if you have like an exact aspect. But like the second house is considered a weaker house. Jupiter there though can improve like wealth and can help you make more money. So now we're going to go on to the sign of Cancer. Okay, so Cancer, you have the lunar total eclipse in Pisces in your 9th house. And this eclipse in the 9th could mark a letting go of a philosophy, value system, or not value system, like belief system that no longer serves you. You could finish a major media or publishing project or marketing or advertising effort. Some of you will decide at this time that you would like to book a long-distance trip. Others will return from a trip. Some will graduate from an educational program. Some will adopt, maybe some of you will adopt more of a teaching role, or you'll sunset a teaching role. Perhaps the dynamic will change with an in-law. I feel like, if you're a Cancer who recently got married or you have in-laws, like in-laws are playing a bigger role in your life potentially after this full moon. Perhaps there's an in-law who's been deceiving you or manipulating you, or you have to set a boundary with an in-law, honestly. Others are realizing where their philosophy on life is woefully restrictive or unsatisfactory. And the Sun and Mercury are in your third, so you're really focused on brainstorming, collaborating, intellectual work as well. Mars is in your fourth, squaring Jupiter in your first. So some tension could arise within the home or family, though, at this time, maybe through the in-laws. Squaring Jupiter in your first. You're a little angry right now, but you're also strong. I think Cancers are really strong right now with Mars square Jupiter in your modality here, with you benefiting from Jupiter's co-presence in your sign. Oh, yeah, and I think for some of you, it's just a compassionate moment where you espouse a more compassionate perspective. You have a spiritual experience while you're traveling, or you have a moment of compassion for an in-law. And then Venus is in the second. Maybe you're spending money, making money, buying things that make you feel validated, which is kind of a toxic trait sometimes. So just watch out for that. But yeah, the lunar eclipse, I think, is with Saturn in your ninth. I mean, it's really showing you, again, whether or not your core belief system and whether or not your core perspective on life is actually satisfactory and holds up to scrutiny, right? So then the solar eclipse in Virgo, this is activating your third house. So for Cancers, perhaps at this time you will really commit to writing a book. I'm trying to do that as a Cancer rising. I mean, I'm definitely finally trying to write the astrology book, but I have to get through some other projects first. So Cancers, you could be starting to write the book, just making a lot of progress with the book, or a writing project. You could be starting a podcast or a blog or a newsletter. You could just be like speaking differently, sounding differently, commuting with a different vehicle, getting a bicycle, getting a car. And I didn't mention this throughout the video, but I would avoid like trying to manifest something specific on eclipses. However, you can still take inspired action during the moment of an eclipse based on how you're feeling at the time. And certainly you can still anticipate the themes, so you can kind of like directionally manifest. So other Cancers might adopt a new dynamic with their siblings or neighbors. You might have new neighbors. Some Cancers might, just change the way they go about their day. I think the third house Virgo new moon is kind of speaks to those atomic habits I mentioned at the beginning. So maybe you're just tackling things differently. You're analyzing things differently. You're writing differently. You're writing in a different voice, or you are just getting things done in a different way. I think your day-to-day surroundings are changing dramatically as a Cancer. And Venus is in the third, so some of this writing could be creative. And the opposition of Saturn, again, is showing that you have to tighten up your perspective on life, and your beliefs are being tested. Your knowledge is being tested, actually. So maybe some Cancers are starting up a new educational practice or process. And Mars goes into Scorpio the next day, which I think is great. You get Mars in the fifth. In Scorpio, there could be a lot of chemistry between you and your partner if you have one, or you can meet someone where there's a lot of passion in the bedroom. And Mercury ruling, or I should say, dispositing the new moon, is opposing Neptune from the 4th to the 10th. So watch out for parents who are deceiving you at that time, or maybe lying to you slightly. But also, you are communicating, I think, emotionally, because the grand air trine is happening in your water houses, quote unquote, which is like the 4th, 8th, 12th. I mean, they're kind of like the emotional houses. So you're really in a more compassionate, emotional, intuitive communication with others, actually. So it's not always a bad thing. Okay, so now we're going to go into Leo. So Leo, you've got the lunar eclipse in Pisces in your 8th house. I have to adjust my software as always. The lunar eclipse in your 8th is really calling attention to any addictive or toxic habits you have that you are still trying to purge. It is bringing your shadow side into your awareness. Perhaps it will force you to reminisce about a dark night of the soul that you had in the past. You're working through your shadows. You are not necessarily like vanquishing your shadow side, right? It's just more that you are becoming even more aware of it so that you can consciously work with it and incorporate it. Other Leos are selling a business or clearing up debt or maybe generating more passive income, banking off of an investment or a stock. But I think for most Leos, you are really further disciplining yourself and really disconnecting from distractions and bad habits that conceal the things you still have to work on or conceal those difficult moments in life that you still have to kind of like fully process. I think Leos, you're having to process some difficult memories that have been affecting your energetic and emotional body. And by working through these things, you can, you can heal, right? You can heal. But I think for a lot of other Leos, it's like more of a business-related milestone or restructuring of your business. With Mercury and the Sun in the 2nd, you're also focused on maybe spending, budgeting, personal possessions. Venus is in your 1st, which is great. It shows that maybe you're building new relationships, you're relating with people more easily, you're feeling charming, attractive, creative. Mars squares Jupiter from the 3rd to the 12th. A lot of you are going to be staying up all night talking to people, and your sleep cycle is going to be a little bit messed up because of that. Especially maybe talking to siblings, but just know that you are protected right now with Jupiter in your 12th. Like you are protected by, I don't know if it's a guardian, spirit guide. But if I were a Leo, I would just like try to like front load my conversations on the phone to like the beginning of the day, so I'm not like staying up until 2 a.m. talking. But a lot of people are going to be calling you this month, whether to talk about business or their own, like maybe someone is going to like therapeutically seek your counsel and your advice about their shadows or their challenging experiences. Uranus is retrograde in your 11th, so you're reflecting on kind of the ways in which you've reinvented your social network, and maybe the liberation you still are seeking from certain communities or friends. Maybe you're reflecting on the random stuff that happened to your social media pages. And then the solar eclipse in Virgo. That's on September 21, and that is in your 2nd house. So with the solar eclipse in the 2nd, this could be a complete redo or reboot of how you make money, how you plan to budget, how you think about your values, how you think about your personal possessions, how you think about your natural talents. And opposing Saturn in the 8th, I think for a lot of you, it is showing the sort of integrity of your financial life. Like, are you conducting yourself honestly in a financial context? Are you spending money on things that actually have long-term value and connection to what you're trying to achieve? Are you structuring your business wisely? Are you, again, are you espousing values that actually help you down the line? Are you engaging in the best habits? Mercury rules the new moon from the 3rd house. So in a lot of ways, you're just very busy right now. And Venus is in the 2nd. So yet again, I just think there's a huge financial implication here for Leos. You're maybe just acquiring new possessions, whether it's a couch or a TV. A lot of you are acquiring possessions that are reinventing your, they're kind of like changing your whole day-to-day routine and process, actually. And with Mercury in the third, it's also a very social time for you. So now we go to Virgo. And Virgo, probably you and Pisces have the most consequential September. So the full moon, lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th. This one's in your 7th house. So Virgo, you are reaching a whole milestone with your relationships. Like, if your partner has been dishonest with you, that's coming to light. If you've been dishonest with your partner, if you are seeking to reconnect with someone compassionately, you could also do that. It could be an emotional bonding with them. If you are, looking for help from somebody, you might seek someone's counsel. If you are just kind of like mailing it in your relationship, that's going to be revealed. And Saturn's back in your 7th. So you have to be honest with yourself at this point about whether or not your relationship, past or present, has any legs. Especially Virgo risings, right? I mean, these horoscopes, I do believe, apply in some respect to the sun, moon, and rising signs. But especially Virgo risings. If like your best friend, your business partner, your romantic partner, if there's any dishonesty there, or if there's any lack of integrity there, like that's going to be revealed. Or if there's no longevity to it, that's going to be revealed. So a lot of Virgos are going to be breaking up, disconnecting from somebody here, or you finally kind of reunify with them through this sort of shared empathy. Now, Venus is in the 12th, so I do think you're purging outdated relationships and you're closing out certain relationship cycles that have reached their karmic fulfillment and purpose. You have Mars in the 2nd, squaring Jupiter. So some of you are going to be perhaps arguing with friends because you don't agree on certain value systems. Maybe you're spending a lot of money on a gathering or to host friends and you don't feel like they're paying you back or something. Others are just trying, like, I think a lot of Virgos are wanting to make more money or as much money as possible to impress their friends. But, like, don't go too far with that. With Uranus retrograde now in the 10th, you're reflecting on the chaos that maybe has unfolded in your career this year, but also it's helping you reflect on a more outside-the-box approach that you could take to your career in the months to follow. And Mercury and the Sun are in your sign, right? So you are communicating, and at this time, I think you are communicating quite well. So have these honest conversations with the closest connections in your life. Next, we have the solar eclipse in your sign, in Virgo, and with the eclipse in your sign, this is a reset, this is a reboot of like who you are, how you present yourself, how you dress, how you look, how you identify, what your name is. I mean, it could be anything. It could be a reset of how you move through the world, the first impression you give off to people. It could be a new relationship, new career, new habit, new routine. And it's opposing Saturn, so I think it is centered around your relationships, though. So again, you're really scrutinizing your relationships. Are they sustainable? Can I depend on the people in my life? Venus is now in Virgo too. So even like a couple weeks after this, Venus hits the South Node, and even that's a purging point for relationships. So Virgos, you're really, if you're in a tenuous relationship right now, in a precarious situation, you're going to go through it probably for the next month or so. If you're in a good relationship, this is just the time to kind of recalibrate, tweak the knobs a little bit. Mercury disposits the new moon from the 2nd house. So I think as long as you're aligned with your partner's values, then the relationship should be able to sustain itself. But yeah, for Virgo, I mean, that eclipse is just a complete reinvention, a reset, maybe even through the lens of your career. So the next sign is Libra, and the lunar eclipse on September 7th is in your 6th house. That eclipse is not my favorite for you. I mean, I don't want to make this too dark, because I think I usually save that for my live shows that aren't reposted. But let's just say that a lot of Libras have had really tough time the past few years, and people have seen it in the news that Libras have had a tough time. With Saturn in the house of bad fortune and or opening in conjunct to Libra suns or moons, a lot of Libras have had health issues in the past couple of years. I'm not saying every Libra has, but a lot of Libras have. It's like in a remarkable proportion. I mean, every Libra that I know has either had health issues, like pretty scary ones too. Now, I'm not saying that the full moon here is going to like worsen anything, but it's like the full moon in co-presence with a Saturn retrograde in the 6th, in the house of bad fortune, with the sun and Mercury in the south node in the house of bad spirit. Like, you are definitely experiencing a reality check with your health in some respect. Whether that means that you prove to the world that, or prove to yourself that like, hey, like I've improved my health outcomes in the past 6 months or a year or 2 years. I am healthier now. I'm celebrating that. Maybe you will be celebrating, a great achievement in health. Others will have a wake-up call here and realize, I have to address my health challenges. Instead, Libras could be finishing a workout challenge, an exercise challenge. Maybe you finish up a work-related thing. Maybe you transition away from a work project, or you get new coworkers or something, or there's a change with your pet. I don't want to manifest anything bad, but like there maybe just is a situation there where you have to, take care of your pet, step in and take care of your pet, and with the sun and Mercury in the 12th, you're not feeling high energy right now. You're, waiting for Libra season to really like revitalize fully. So you're kind of cocooning right now. Focus on your mindfulness and meditation practices. Venus is in the 11th, though, so there is some social element going on there. You could achieve some positive results on social media. You could like go more viral or something. Mars is in your 1st, so you are also feeling bold, but don't deplete yourself. Don't burn out. Mars squares Jupiter. You might get into a fight with a parent or someone in your family. But also, I think that you are impressing people with how bold you're being and how brazen you're being. And this is not a bad time for Libras to maybe you're finishing a project that you hated for many months and it's tedious. You finally got through it and now you're ready to quit your job and become an entrepreneur. I mean, recently was a great time for Libras to become entrepreneurs with Mars in the 1st, plus Venus, Jupiter in the 10th. So a lot of Libras, I think, have become entrepreneurs, where they've launched a project that really sets them apart from others. Uranus is retrograde in the 9th, so you're reflecting on the overhauling or reinvention of some of your philosophies and belief systems. And some of you are maybe traveling to kind of wacky, just outside the box places you would never travel to usually. I don't know what a wacky place would be, but I'm just saying like a place that's less conventional for you. So let's go to the new moon. So for Libras, it's a quiet new moon for you probably, although Mercury's in Libra at that time ruling the new moon, so I get why maybe that's wrong. But for a lot of Libras, right, like Sun, Moon, South Node, Venus all on the 12th, at the end of September, you are purging outdated relationships, closing out relationship cycles. Hopefully not forming a behind-the-scenes relationship, but like some of you will. Just devoting more time to your spiritual practices, addressing any mental health challenges, maybe trying to purify your spiritual practices, make them more consistent, incorporate them into your daily life. With Mercury opposing Neptune and trining Uranus, Pluto, don't lie to your partner. I mean, a lot of Libras here, it looks like, could have an affair. in late September. I wouldn't recommend it, but to be honest with you, I think some Libras will have an affair. And I think it'll develop around September 20th, 21st. But, you know, you can obviously avoid that. Some of you will have to navigate deception in a relationship, though. But you're going to be, again, like there is a social energy here in late September for Libras. But at the same time, you're carving out moments at the beginning or the end of each day to just kind of like unwind and disconnect, which is good. Because a day later, it's Libra season, and you're really going to be highly active during Libra season. But it requires you to really, shore up your, any bad, like you're just like maybe pruning and any bad practices and curbing them and bad habits. You're overcoming bad habits, right? And you're really adhering to healthier living, a healthier lifestyle, which is great. Okay, so now we have Scorpio, the lunar eclipse, September 7th. This is in your 5th house. The lunar eclipse in the 5th could indicate that you are completing a creative project. You might be celebrating that. Some of you are putting on a creative performance. Other Scorpios are having a child or starting to take responsibility as a parent. Other Scorpios might let go of a casual relationship, situationship, or you'll have a very romantic date. And Saturn's in your 5th now. So you're seeing your creative process, you're seeing your creative hobbies, you're seeing your romantic life much more realistically now. Or again, you're taking responsibility as a parent. Mercury and the Sun in the South Node are on the 11th. So you are, at the same time, I think, being fairly social in September. Maybe reconnecting with friends from your past, bridging or bringing people together in a community. Mars is in your house of bad spirits, so sleep is an issue potentially. I mean, I've been staying up to like 2 o'clock every night, not knowing why. It just happens when Mars is in your 12th or in the 12th sign, relative to your sun or moon. So, with Mars in the 12th, just try your best to get good sleep, especially if you're traveling a lot. Some Scorpios are traveling a lot with Jupiter in the 9th. So a lot of Scorpios are pulling maybe all-nighters while traveling. Maybe some of you are taking like a red-eye flight this month. And some of you are also expanding your perspective about what it means to be part of a family, or some of you are feeling supported by like in-laws or family members at this time. Some Scorpios are realizing that they would like to have kids eventually, no matter how long the road to that is. Some Scorpios are finding out that maybe it is a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for them to have kids. Venus is in the 10th, so some of you are just seen as more attractive in the public eye, or people are just having a more favorable impression of you in a professional setting. So it's cool. Uranus is retrograde in the 8th. So you're reflecting on the ebb and flow of your investments, your passive income, and you're reflecting on maybe the leaps and bounds you've made into new intuitive practices or gifts. Maybe you're exploring esoteric subjects. And then we have the solar partial eclipse, September 21. And for Scorpios, that is in the 11th. So Scorpio, you're either raising your standards, demanding better from your friends or community. Maybe you're adopting a new social media production schedule. Perhaps you are going to a conference, going to a networking event. Perhaps you're just doing something nice for a friend, providing for a friend, or attending a friendly gathering or something. Maybe you're creating something with people, musically or otherwise. With the opposition of Saturn in the 5th, perhaps you are, creating with a group of people. I guess that would make sense. And Venus is in the 11th, so it is a social period for you. Mars goes into Scorpio the next day, at which point you will be very independent, very driven, very brazen. Squaring Pluto in the 4th. you might, like a family member might, for whatever reason, try to get under your skin. Mercury's in the 12th at that time, so you are very intuitive. You're feeling very intuitive, but maybe I feel like you're able to grasp the subtle dynamics between people in the 11th house because you have the 12th, 8th, and 4th also activated. So you're able to notice the subtle, like, energetic, dynamics between people as you socialize with people, with new people, maybe, which I think is great. And maybe you get into a little bit of a power struggle with a parent or someone you're living with when Mars scores Pluto. Okay, so let's advance to Sagittarius. You have the full moon in your 4th house, so that's going to be very consequential for your domestic life. So with the full moon plus Saturn, you might have a totally new perspective on where you'd like to live, or on your family, or on your parents, on your home environment. Maybe you decide that you have to move, or you find out that you have to move around this time. Maybe your parent calls you up and says, "Hey, I need you to fly to where I am to take care of me." Maybe it's a grandparent instead. Maybe even for Sagittarius is actually you realize around this time that you would like to become a parent, or that you just see your parents through different eyes. Some of you are just changing up the energy in your home. Like I said, it could be simple like that. But I do think a lot of you are either seeking to relocate eventually or during this full moon. The Sun and Mercury are in the 10th. So at the same time, you are quite focused on your career. Venus is in the 9th. Some of you might be spending money on higher education or travel. Mars squares Jupiter from the 11th to the 8th. So you're, energized, but also stressed by friendships. Or maybe you end up, just getting a little frustrated with a friend, or you spend a lot of money on. With Jupiter in the 8th, it actually feels more like you're discovering a lot about the shadow self through stressful events in your friendships or communities. A lot of you are energized to be on social media, but just don't get too argumentative on social media at this time. With Uranus retrograde in your 7th, you're reflecting on the maybe chaos that's unfolded in your relationships in recent months, but also the ways in which you'd like to reinvent your relationships. But I think this full moon is pretty obvious, right? Like, we're really focused here on like changes in your home environment. And then the solar partial eclipse on September 21st, that is in your 10th house. So with the eclipse in the 10th, this is a reset in your career. Maybe you even start a new job here. Maybe you take on new responsibilities. Maybe you become a parent. Maybe you think about parenting differently. You think about authority differently. You do something nice for your parent. Maybe you just are working in a new routine that furthers your success in your career. It's opposing Saturn in the 4th. So for a lot of you, it does pertain to like parenting, your goals around parenting, your goals regarding your career, and how you are building a foundation within your home that allows for like your career objectives to also happen. You're just trying to like build and establish a clear home and career related foundation at this time. Venus is in the 10th at this point, so you are being seen more positively in the public. And then Mars goes into Scorpio the next day, so then you will be the sign that has to monitor your sleep and make sure you're getting enough sleep. But yeah, a 10th house eclipse could dramatically reset your public reputation, what people think of you publicly, what you're working on, how you delegate responsibilities, how you take responsibilities, how you, like, your reputation could change. What you're working on, what you're striving towards. And with Mercury opposing Neptune and Mercury dispositing the new moon, you have to watch out for deceptive friendships and manipulative social situations. All right, so now we're going to go to Cap. So Cap, the full moon, is in the third. So a full moon in the third could be that you get closure that you've been seeking with somebody. You finally have the conversation about where we're heading long term or what we are. You're defining maybe the connection. Maybe you are cutting off contact with somebody, conversely. Maybe you are completing an educational track. Maybe you're completing a book, a writing project. Maybe you're communicating that you want help or that you need help. Maybe you're communicating more emotionally right now. Maybe you are disconnecting from a sibling or neighbor or connecting with them compassionately. Some of you are returning from a trip. Sun, Mercury in the South Node are in the ninth. So the focus is on either higher education, perspective, or long-distance travel. Venus is in the eighth. So you're looking for deeper, more intimate relationships. Jupiter in the seventh. Hopefully your relationships are getting better. It's squaring Mars, though, in the 10th. So watch out for fights with parents or with a partner even, or with an authority figure. But with Mars in the 10th, some of you are adapting to life as an entrepreneur, striving to become an entrepreneur, or experiencing some stress as an entrepreneur, but juxtaposed with Venus in the 8th, if you have been an entrepreneur for a long time, you might finally gain like an investor, or you might generate more passive income through that career or something. But yeah, the full moon in the 3rd, to me, is just like an emotional conversation or dialogue with somebody. But also it's showing where your ideas and conceptions of things need to be refined and more structured. So you're structuring your thoughts a little bit more after purging emotionally, after spilling your guts. September 21, we have the Virgo new moon, partial solar eclipse in your 9th house, and a 9th house new moon I oftentimes find is very subtle. It could be the adoption of a new perspective, new belief system, which can be huge, but for a lot of people it's more of just an internal change. Others are traveling, actually, going somewhere long distance, or starting to enroll in a higher educational space, taking on more of a teaching role, entering more of a publishing, marketing, advertising sphere, and opposing Saturn in the 3rd. Again, this is about the correctness or the robustness of your ideas and concepts. If you're a Capricorn who believes that, everybody is a victim, that might be challenged at this time. If you're a Capricorn who decides that you can just lie to yourself or lie to others, you're going to have to tell the truth here about your true intentions. Or whatever it is. I mean, it could just be that you call somebody out for being untruthful. But rest assured, like if you're a Capricorn who has an insufficient conception of something, idea of something, or notion of something, that's being challenged during this season. With Venus in the 9th, again, you could be spending money on higher education or traveling. With Uranus retrograde in your 6th, you are throughout the month reflecting on the random changes you've experienced in your routines or your health and how to address that. Mercury deposits the new moon in your 10th, opposing Neptune in the 4th. So yeah, watch out for deception among a parent, or you're just finding out maybe some news about a parent potentially, or someone you live with, or a roommate. So now we're going to advance to Aquarius. And for Capricorns, that full moon in the 3rd just could be that, again, you're completing a publishing or not publishing, but like a writing project, communications project, or you're just like refining your skills, refining your ideas, refining the way you're communicating about something. So next we have Aquarius, like I said. That full moon's in your 2nd house of money, possessions, natural talents, self-worth. Full moon in the 2nd could show that you're selling a possession, acquiring a possession, focused on changing your budget. Maybe you are realizing your true self-worth, realizing that your natural talents are being underutilized or something. But in juxtaposition with Saturn in your 2nd house, for many of you, this is a reality check around budgeting and money. So if you've been overspending, you'll realize that and make corrections. If you've been, if you're off target with your financial objectives for the year, you'll address that. I mean, a lot of Aquariuses, I've talked about this for years now, but like a lot of you with Saturn, and even more recently, the North Node in the second, I think a lot of you have wanted to monetize something that you're just creatively gifted at, especially with Uranus in the fifth, your Pluto in the first. You're trying to transform, trying to make money off of something that is just like innately, like you're innately gifted at, especially creatively. But it's on that path to monetization, there's a lot of recalibrations and adjustments. I think you'll be making that adjustment here. Sun and Mercury are in your eighth. So you are actually focused on investments as well. And analyzing the state of your assets and investments. Venus is in the seventh. So perhaps you are starting new relationships or relating with people more effectively and in a more charming way. Mars squares Jupiter from the 9th to the 6th. Some of you are stressed while traveling. I mean, Aquarius is you got Mars in the 9th right now. So a lot of you are looking to travel long distance. But while you're traveling, you might feel a little independent, like you're not really wanting to be around your travel companion all the time. Squaring Jupiter. Maybe some coworkers are picking up the slack for you at work. Conversely, though, some of you are arguing or fighting with a coworker while you're traveling because they're not picking up your slack for you or something. Then we have the partial solar eclipse in Virgo. This is September 21. And it's in your 8th house. So 8th house solar eclipse is a marked change in your investments, how you strategize around building wealth passively or through a marriage. Some of you are recently married maybe, and you're discussing the financial implications. Perhaps you're uncoupling from somebody in a financial sense. Maybe you're meeting with a financial advisor here and navigating the appropriate next steps with investing. Venus is in the 8th. So again, you're focused on money, passive income, assets, stocks, debt, and the more physical intimacy aspects of relationships. With Mercury in the 9th, opposing Neptune in the 3rd. Maybe you feel like a little confused about what your perspectives or beliefs are right now, where you'd like to travel, you just don't know. With Uranus retrograde, by the way, in the 5th, you're reflecting on the reinvention that you've experienced in your creative life or your romantic life recently. Maybe the reinvention you'd like to continue to embark on. But keep in mind, this eclipse is opposing Saturn, so really, truly, this solar eclipse is a reality check on the state of your assets, your investments, your budgeting, your values, your possessions. Yeah, I mean, this is about hard assets. And then when Mars goes into the 10th, a day later in Scorpio, you might, have a breakthrough as an entrepreneur. You might step into just a new sort of level in your career. You might take bigger chances in your career that end up paying off. I think Mars in your 10th should be pretty powerful, actually, in the coming weeks after that. And yeah, I mean, I think for Aquarius also, perhaps you will really just spend a little bit of time on this eclipse digging into your shadows, your fears, your complexes, and get to the root of them, get to the origin of them. And then we finish off with one of the most significant signs for September, Pisces, right? The lunar eclipse is in your 1st house, September 7th. So this is a dramatic ending, purging of emotions, purging of lies or deception, or purging any relationship that's toxic, any unhealthy relationship, any unhealthy habit or practice. You might be spiritually, divinely inspired at this time. You might be creatively inspired. You might break up with somebody. You might just be vulnerable, share your emotions. You might just burn out and take a day off. You might take a moment to just address mindfulness and spiritual health. And with Saturn co-present in the first house or in your sign, you're having a reality check about your long-term aspirations. Like, are they on track? Are they off track? Are you committed to the right things, the right people? Are you taking the responsibilities that feel good to you? Are you taking the responsibilities that you just have to take regardless? Are you cutting corners in a certain area? Again, being deceptive or lying to yourself, deluding yourself. Like, Saturn is the wake-up call planet. Like, you're not going to be able to avoid the stark reality of something. Mercury and the Sun are in the 7th, so partnership is a focus, of course, at the same time. Venus is in the 6th, so you're trying to relate to your coworkers in a better way. Maybe you're trying to incorporate more creativity into your daily work. Sextile Mars in the 8th. A coworker could trigger you a little bit or something, or upset you, but also kind of weirdly help you do some shadow work. You could be fighting with someone about assets or investments or shared resources. Uranus recently went retrograde in your 4th, so you're reflecting on maybe the chaos that's unfolded in your family this year. Or you're reflecting on the random occurrences that have happened in your home or family or roommates, and reflecting on what is overdue for like a complete change maybe in that environment. Mars does square Jupiter from the 5th to the 8th, and Jupiter in the 5th does augment your creativity, or maybe it's helping some Pisces conceive. I think Pisces is the most likely sign to conceive during this month. Or maybe to conceive a creative work. But anyways, some Pisces will conceive. It's, you are the most likely sign to conceive. And also with Mars in the 8th, some of you are holding on to too much like resentment or kind of vengefulness. You're just going to have to like be vulnerable on this full moon. Let it go. Release the tension. And then we finish off with a solar partial eclipse in Virgo. So, that's accenting your 7th house. And therefore, it's like potentially a new relationship, new dynamic, it's a new energy in your relationships one-on-one. It could be a new business partnership, new romantic relationship, new best friendship. And I think maybe you're just holding yourself to a higher standard as a partner. They're holding you to a higher standard. You're committing to be more consistent with your partner. You're committing to, just being more dependable, doing what you saying what you're doing. Venus in the 7th shows that there can be positive outcomes in your relationships if you act with integrity. Mercury disposits the new moon from the 8th, opposing Neptune, trining Pluto, Uranus. So I think you're communicating in an intuitive way, in a compassionate way, but you have to avoid deception, especially financial deception at this time. Mars goes into Scorpio a day later, so you're going to be energized to travel, but also maybe stressed by travel or to publish something. But with this new moon opposing Saturn in your sign, this is about having the healthiest of relationships. This is kind of going back in full circle to the beginning of the video. You just want to be surrounding yourself with people who don't deplete you. They nourish you. They make you feel good. They make you feel inspired. They're not manipulating you. They're not lying to you, and you're not lying to them. It's like a rising tide that lifts all boats, right? Everybody is operating with the highest of standards. And maybe you end up developing a partnership with someone who has a really refined skill set that you need as like a business partner. I mean, that could be it too. So let's conclude the month of September. It's a very pivotal month because of the eclipses. This is a month that's really going to challenge you to live healthier with more honesty and earnestness. This is going to reveal areas of depletion across all types of subtle bodies. Physical body as well, but like energetic body, emotional body, etheric body. I mean, there's all kinds of bodies, right? But you are really witnessing the impact energetically of like surrounding yourself with people who either don't have your best interests in mind, or people who, secretly want your demise or whatever, or, people who are spineless or whatever. I mean, you have to start with yourself, right? But also don't surround yourself with those types of people starting in September, especially. Like by September, it's like you got to purify and cleanse the aura. You have to let go of residual emotions and energy from that past breakup or that past job loss, or and maybe some of you still need time to grieve something, right? Like maybe some of you have a really difficult experience that you're still grieving. But also this is a time to get serious about anything creative or spiritual you're doing. To keep your spiritual ambitions in check, like if you feel like you're just buying into every spiritual doctrine without filtering it or evaluating it, or if you're just following somebody because, I don't know, you're projecting an ideal onto them, you're going to rethink that. And also, again, like you can't afford to lie to yourself anymore. So after September, you're going to live more honestly. After September, you're going to, I think, be using technology in a more efficient way. But also, you're going to be questioning the pros and cons of using like AI. And some of you are going to maybe de-emphasize it in your life in order to favor more social in-person interactions. Some of you will be completely overstimulated and turned off by social media, and you will kind of like search for some other form of community. And that's something I did not address at the beginning of the video that has only come to me now. The squares from Mercury and Venus to Uranus and Gemini this month, I think are kind of overstimulating. I do think it's this feeling of like, I have too much information coursing through me in my daily routines, in my daily life. And part of that is because I'm just like turning on the latest and greatest YouTube creator and putting them on in the background. Maybe you're listening to me right now in the background. No hate there. I don't care. But it's like maybe you're realizing, what is the value of all this information if I'm just consuming it mindlessly at 2.5 playback speed? Maybe some of you are going to, like, in a Virgoan sense, kind of live a more back to basics, kind of like pure lifestyle. Like, I'm not saying you're going to live off the land or something, but you're going to live a life that's more organic again. And maybe you're going to spend more time in your garden or with the food that you make and stuff. Or spending more time with your pets. So thank you. I hope this video resonated with you. If it did or did not, drop a comment below. Also, I do offer coaching sessions now. They are either 2-hour remote coaching sessions, which is a deep dive into your birth chart, your transits and progressions, or a 4-hour in-person coaching session in Los Angeles that entails 1-hour birth chart reading, 1-hour transit and progressions reading, a 1-hour lunch beforehand where you just tell me about your life, and a 4th hour where we actually come up with a strategy for you to implement and manifest what you want. So inquire about that through my website. You can inquire about this through my email address, which is on my website. So, check those out. Also, I do live weekly readings on my Substack channel for paid subscribers. And that's an alternative route if you want to get a chance at a reading. What else was I going to say? I probably will be doing another show in Los Angeles very soon, like sometime in October, so look out for that. And also, I've got some new music coming up in the next few months. So really excited for that because I'm a lifelong musician. It's really my core passion and why I moved to LA originally. So let's see what happens with it. So anyways, thank you so much and take care.